So what are you doing here? You have a reason for being here? To learn?
Yeah.
Good.
Are we talking about here right now or here in New York?
Here in New York.
Shabbaton.
Which is what? A learning experience?
Having fun.
Exploring? Huh?
Having fun.
Having fun?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is there to learn about? What's important? Judaism? It's amazing that Judaism is 4,000 years old, right? It started with Abraham. And it's still not only interesting, but necessary. Can anything be that old and still be meaningful? There's a Mishnah, it's 2,000 years old. And it says something like this. Remember, 2,000 years ago, you know what the world was like 2,000 years ago? It was a pretty ugly world. 2,000 years ago, the Mishnah says, do not speak too much to women, to the woman. This includes your wife, because if you do, you'll destroy your life. Sounds like something 2,000 years ago?
That was him today.
Don't speak too much to the woman, which includes your wife, because if you do, it'll ruin your life. Two questions. First of all, how much is too much? Don't speak too much. It doesn't say don't speak to women, which might be a good idea, but it doesn't say that. It says don't speak too much. Well, what? You have to count your words? 10 words okay? 11 words not okay? How much is too much? So some translations translate it as don't gossip with women, which is not a good definition, because you shouldn't gossip with men either. Gossip is its own problem, has nothing to do with men or women. So what does it mean? The other thing is, what does it mean, the woman? This is so ahead of its time, it's amazing. 2,000 years ago, the rabbis were saying, don't speak too much. What is too much? Too much is when you talk and you have nothing to say. That's too much. Like, for example, two guys are sitting on an airplane, side by side, for 6 hours, and they don't say a word to each other. Why? They got nothing to say. But if the same guy was sitting next to a woman, within a half hour, he has something to say. He'll ask her about the seat and about the flight and about where she's coming from and what time it is and what day it is. He'll make some conversation even though he has nothing to say. Why? Why?
Come on, guys.
Because he just wants to talk too much.
Why?
Because he likes her. He wants.
He wants to start a conversation.
He is starting a conversation. Why? Why, if it was a man, he wouldn't say anything? If it's a woman, he has something to say.
He's in love.
He's in love. A total stranger.
It's a human instinct. A guy wants to talk to a girl. Like since we're cavemen, that's how it was.
Since the caveman.
Yeah.
They didn't even talk
They
then.
wouldn't talk to each other. Probably talk to each other.
They grunted. So that's why the Mishnah says, do not make conversation. That's what it means. Talk too much means make a conversation when there's no conversation. You have nothing to say. But you're going to make a conversation. Now, why would you make a conversation? Because you see the person sitting next to you as the woman, not a woman. If you think of a woman as an object, a thing, the woman, then you'll make conversation. If you see her as a human being who happens to be a woman, if you have something to say, you'll say it, and if you don't, you don't. So 2,000 years ago, the sages were saying, men have to respect women. That was way ahead of its time. And it's so relevant today because you know what's going on with the Me Too. So here's really a completely Jewish attitude. Men molesting women, abusing women, in Hollywood, in politics, wherever. There is something new going on that wasn't happening in the past. So many people are angry because men don't respect women and therefore they abuse them or they mistreat them or embarrass them or whatever. Men not respecting women, that's an old story. Goes back to the cavemen. It's not new. Other people say men in power abuse their power. If they have authority, they abuse that authority and take advantage of. That's also as old as history. Nothing new. What's going on today is new. And what's new is not the lack of respect for women, it's the lack of respect for intimacy. We don't respect intimacy. We don't even know what it means, by the way. A man hugs a woman, good morning, and she says, "Get your hands off me." He says, "Whoa, what is your problem?" "I was just being friendly." And she says, "No, that was a little too intimate." He says, "Maybe in your mind, not in my mind." This is a problem. And it's a serious problem because it's just getting worse, and men and women are going to start living separate lives and not trusting each other because of the misunderstandings and so on. It's already started, by the way. Men are afraid to hire women. And women are afraid to hire men. It's not a good thing. So what happened is, back in the 60s, people decided, men and women, decided that we're taking sex way too seriously. We're so hung up, we're so uptight about it, with all the rules and all the regulations and all the, it's horrible. We gotta relax. It's just fun. It's just natural. So, free love for everybody. Let's just have some fun. You don't have to get serious. You don't have to become emotionally involved. Just have some fun. Why be so serious? Particularly since there's birth control and you won't get pregnant. No problem. See, you can't fool Mother Nature. What's intimate is intimate. You can't make believe it's not. Let me give a good example. Shaking hands, holding hands. Is there anything seriously intimate and sexual about it? No, it's just holding hands, shaking hands. But everybody knows, certainly women know, a guy shakes your hand just to be polite. But he holds your hand like 3 seconds longer than necessary. And all of a sudden, he's a pervert. Like, let go of my hand, you sicko. What? It was just 3 seconds. You can't fool Mother Nature. It's intimate. It's meaningful. You're going to try to convince yourself it's just fun? Not going to work. So the problem today between men and women is that we don't respect what is intimate. We make believe it's nothing. It's not nothing. So let me give you an example. We have a program in Minnesota for women. We started it in 1970. And all the women that came to the program were from the 60s on campus where they were rebelling and they were burning down the campuses and they did not want to play the game, the beauty game, where women have to look good, and they didn't buy it. So they kind of neglected themselves. They were natural. So they didn't use shampoo, right? They didn't brush their teeth. They didn't take care of themselves, basically. There was one woman came, she had gone so far, she had neglected herself so badly, it was, nobody wanted to share a room with her. Even the other hippies, that she was grossly overweight. She was, okay, enough said. During the program, she said to me, "Can we talk privately? I need to ask you something." So we went into this little room that was my office. It was just big enough for 2 chairs and a little coffee table. She was sitting next to the door, and she closed the door. So I said, "Leave the door open just, a little bit." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because a man and a woman should not be alone in a closed room. It's too intimate." She started to cry like I had destroyed her life. And I thought I had embarrassed her, insulted her or something. Anyway, she finally pulls herself together and she says, "This is the first time anyone has ever treated me like a woman." She had neglected herself so badly. In terms of personal attraction, nobody was attracted. So if it was a personal thing, yeah, close the door, I don't care. There's no attraction going on here. But that's not real. That's just a feeling. I'm not attracted. But being together in a room is intimate. It is. So it's like being intimate with someone you don't like, but you're being intimate. You can't fool Mother Nature. So you can't say, since I have no feelings for her, it's not intimate. My feelings come and go. My feelings may be way off. But what's the fact? The fact is, this is intimate. So being alone in a room together is an intimacy. If you don't feel it, it's because you're dull. You're bored, you're distracted or something. But the intimate is intimate, and you have to respect it. So there are 2 things. There is, of course, mutual respect. Got to treat people like human beings. But then there's also the respect for the intimacy. Like, what's holy is holy, whether you think so or not, whether you feel it or not. So you go into a holy place, you got to recognize the holiness. You don't have to love it, you don't have to feel it, you just have to respect it. The same is true with intimacy. Any relationship between a man and a woman is a holy thing. And that's why it's so awesome, and that's why it's so dangerous and can hurt people so badly if it's misused. So if we have a respect for intimacy, it makes our social life, and certainly our married life, so much better. One more story. Years ago, I was asked to speak to a Talmud Torah class. Anybody go to Talmud Torah?
Hebrew school.
Anybody? Yeah? Like after school, Hebrew school? Yeah. Anyway, the kids in Minnesota, they hated it. They didn't want to be there. They weren't interested. It was just because the synagogue demanded it in order to have a bar mitzvah. So they went. They never learned a word. They never paid attention. They didn't take it seriously at all. The teacher decided that she wants to speak to them about premarital sex. Of course, she didn't get anywhere. So she asked me to come in and speak to them as a guest. Maybe they'll pay attention. They were 12 years old. They were too giddy. I couldn't get their attention. It was a waste of time. So I changed the subject. They were giggling and they were joking and I said, okay, let's not talk about premarital sex. Let's talk about extramarital sex. The room got so quiet. It was scary. Like, whoa, what happened? They suddenly got serious. It became quiet, and they listened. What's the difference? When I said extramarital, that scared them. Because the thought that maybe their mother was cheating on their father or the father was cheating on the mother, hey, that's not a laughing matter. That's scary stuff. Why? Why isn't it true? If intimacy belongs inside the marriage, and that's why if you go outside the marriage, it's terrible. So why can a person who's not married act as if he is married, but a married person is never allowed to act as if he's not married? That's a double standard. If intimacy belongs in the marriage, then it shouldn't happen outside the marriage, and a married person should never go outside the marriage. So either intimacy is real, it's important, it's holy, and you treat it that way, or you play games. You play games before you're married, why wouldn't you play games after you're married? So we need to take intimacy much more seriously, because it's destroying our relationships, even our marriages. So one of the things you want to learn during this weekend is how to treat things that are holy, that are awesome, how to treat them with respect. Not get uptight. That was really wrong. Back in the 60s when people rebelled, it's not because we had respect for intimacy, but because we had all sorts of fears and taboos, and that's not healthy. But real respect, that's great. That is great. So any girl who feels like a guy is treating her with respect, you make her life. She can breathe, she can live. If she feels that people are not treating her with respect, she doesn't belong in society. She has to protect herself, defend herself, look out for. It's horrible. It's a horrible way to live. So you can't appreciate the holiness or the sanctity of marriage if nothing else in your life is sacred. You don't know what that means. The beautiful thing about Judaism, we have holy books. We treat them differently. We don't put them on the ground. We don't take them into the bathroom. If they fall down, we kiss them. We treat the holy book like a holy book. There are holy places. The synagogue is a holy place. Certain things you're not allowed to do because it's too holy. We have holy days, like Shabbat. So we're familiar. You have the mezuzah on the door. You walk past it every day, coming and going. It's a little holiness. So we are familiar. And that's why when it comes to intimacy or to sexuality, we say, well, there's a holiness there too. And we know what that means, and we know how to treat something holy. That's if you could learn that, you've made your life much more livable, much richer. That would go a long way. How much time do we have?
About, we got time. 15 minutes?
Wow. Okay.
Is that good? No?
That's plenty. There's an explorer. Different subject. An explorer,
Can we do questions on that before we switch subjects, or?
any questions? Yeah.
So is it like considered intimacy if like you're in a room with a married girl?
Yes.
So you can't be with like in a room with any girl?
If there's no window, the door is closed, it's too private. So you leave the door open, you leave a window open. You don't create a situation that is more intimate than the relationship. So if you're not married to each other, don't create that kind of privacy because it doesn't match.
What if it's like your sister?
Your sister's okay. Your mother's okay, your grandmother's okay. Yeah, move on.
Questions on this is awesome.
Okay, here's something about learning, about using your mind. An explorer comes back from Australia, first guy ever to come back from Australia. And he says, there's an animal down there. It hops around on its hind legs, and the mother carries its baby in a pocket. Kangaroo. You say to the explorer, you expect me to believe that? I'm not so naive. I don't believe that. Would that be an intelligent reaction? In other words, is there an intelligent reason for you to say, I don't believe that? Is there? But
Maybe because like not a lot of animals have that.
no other animal has that. Right. So the only reason you would doubt it is because you've never heard it. Is that a reason to doubt something? If everyone doubted things they never heard, we would still be in the caves. So the only thing you can say to this explorer is, what? I never heard of such a thing. What would the explorer say? I know. I'm an explorer. That's what I get the big bucks for, to come back and tell you things you've never seen before. So of course you've never seen it. You're not the explorer. So to say I don't believe it because I never saw it, that's dumb. That's brainless. So what should you say if a guy comes back and says there's an animal down there that carries its babies in a pocket? What should you say?
He has a picture.
No, this is before pictures. In other words, you're asking him for proof?
Yeah.
Not necessary. What you really want to ask him is, where is the pocket? When does baby go into the pocket? Is it born in the pocket? At what age? How does it hop around on two legs? What does it eat? You just found out that there's an unusual creature. Don't you want to know more? So if you were intelligent, you would say, tell me more. What does it look like? How big is it? What color? What does it eat? Eats leaves and shoots? Know that joke? Somebody says to you, God gave the 10 Commandments 3,300 years ago on Mount Sinai. And you say, I don't believe that. You don't believe that? That is not an intelligent reaction. Why would you say I don't believe that? Because you weren't there? I know you weren't there. It happened 3,000 years ago. Well, I never saw such a thing. I know. It only happened once. What is believing and what is intelligence? See, if somebody says, I don't believe in God, not smart. Not smart. That's like saying, I don't believe in the moon. There's a moon. You want to know more about it or not? You can't say, I don't believe there's a God, People talk about God. You want to know more or not? You can't just say, I don't believe it. You can say, I think people made up God. Okay? What did they make up? Why did they make it up? Explore the idea. But you can't say it doesn't exist. So where is intelligence? And that's why you'll see, as you learn here or back home, believing is not a big issue in Judaism. The question is not what do you believe. The question is, what do we know? What do we know about God? What do we know about creation? Whether you believe it or not, what's the difference? If it's true, it's true. If it's not, it's not. Believing something doesn't make it true. Not believing doesn't make it untrue. So if somebody says to you, do you believe in God? It's a silly question. What's the difference? Do you know anything about God? Hey, that's interesting. So what is the real issue with God in the world today? The Muslim says God wants us to kill all the infidel. Is that true? Is that what God wants? That's an important question. Whether you believe in God, too late. They believe in God, and they believe God said to kill the infidel. You talk to Christians, and they say, no, God is love. Only love. Turn the other cheek. Is that what God said? That's interesting, because that can be dangerous. So stop asking whether you believe it. Start finding out more about it. That's called intelligence. Make sense? I think the example of the explorer is a good one. When you hear something you never heard before, do you automatically doubt it? Or do you accept it because you just learned something new? What's the intelligent way?
You accept it.
Because?
You learn something new.
Yeah. Because every time you learn something new, you never heard it before.
The more you accept things, you can put more things like together.
That's your imagination, organizing things.
Is it like going into a new grade in school and learning new information and just learning about it?
Yeah. So look, one of two things can happen. Either you'll accept it, and then you'll find out that it wasn't true. So now you learn something else. Or you don't accept it, you'd never learn anything new, and then you find out it is true. That's sad. So the intelligent thing is, when you hear something you've never heard before, ask. Ask for more information. Don't decide whether you believe it or not, because that's not the issue. Make sense? That's how you learn. So enjoy the weekend, enjoy the learning, come away smarter. Come away smarter. That's a good weekend. Thanks for listening.
Partner with Rabbi Friedman. Visit itsgoodtoknow.org/support.